Welcome to the Peter King Podcast. Another busy week in the National Football League. And we're going to go over quite a few topics, including we'll be joined a little bit later on from the league meetings in Palm Beach, Florida, with Sam Farmer of the Los Angeles Times, good friend of mine. He's been covering the NFL for 100 years like I have. And he'll get us updated on everything that happened in Palm Beach over the 3 days of the meetings. But so much to discuss right now with everything going around the NFL. I'm joined by my friend Paul Burmeister. And Paul, we're going to go over a lot in this podcast. We're going to hit a few topics and we're going to hit them fast. We're going to talk about the pressure / opportunity on Tua Tagovailoa. We're going to talk about the state of the Browns now that Deshaun Watson has been introduced. We're going to talk about the new overtime rule that was just passed at the league meetings. And I also really want to get into a little bit into Malik Willis, because when I talk to people, and I'm not a McShay, Kuiper, guy, but in terms of studying this, but there's a lot of people in the league talking about Malik Willis. I know that you and Chris Sims have been talking a lot about the college quarterbacks. So I want to get a few of your thoughts on the quarterbacks, but specifically on Malik Willis, who I think now is very likely to be picked in the first half of the first round. So let's get into that. And good afternoon, Paul. And Paul, I asked you when we were going back and forth a little bit, did you see that UConn North Carolina State basketball game, the women's game? All the people who say, oh man, women's basketball stinks. I mean, I don't want to watch that. That is the best sports event I've seen since the Super Bowl. And I know you missed it. I wanted to clap you across the head there because this is now, they're your UConn Huskies. You're a nutmeg stater now. But hey, that was a heck of a game. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Peter. And you know what? I not only am remiss for not watching it on TV, I should have gone. Bridgeport Arena is literally about 12 minutes from my house. So wow. I am doubly in the wrong, double bogey here on the first hole, Peter, before we've even started. So I'll try to work myself out over the next half hour.
Well, you could always fly to Minneapolis and see UConn Stanford Friday, but that's a whole nother matter. All right. So the first topic. The overtime change, the rules change that was made at the NFL meetings just a couple of hours ago as we record this. I've got some inside information about what exactly happened. So, Paul, let me just go over that first, and then I want to hear your reaction to what was done and what wasn't done. Okay? So, basically, going into this meeting, I'd say the majority of the competition committee felt that they wanted to pass a rule for every game, regular season and postseason, so that every game would have the rule that said both teams should touch the ball in overtime. But that didn't happen. And I'll tell you why it didn't happen. As the discussion was going on, and as they did a straw poll around the room about how many people were in support of the very simple rules change, which is both teams touch the ball in overtime at least once. And when the second team touches the ball on first down, it's now sudden death. So if the first team scores, then the second team gets the ball and scores, and if the first team scored a touchdown and kicked a PAT, the second team can score a touchdown and kick a PAT, and then the game just goes on. The first team will get the ball back, and if they score anything at that point, the game is over. And the one wrinkle in this that people should know is on the second possession, if the period is going to expire, if there were two long possessions, if the period is going to expire, they will go into the next period just like they would between first quarter and second quarter. So in other words, they won't stop and, you know, and start again and kick off again. But it'll just be like, you know, you'd change sides of the field and you would keep going on that drive. So I think what ended up happening is when they took a straw poll about the overtime change in all games, they took a straw poll, and I was told that maybe 16 or 18 teams were in favor of it. But that meant that they were going to have to twist 6 or 8 arms, because you need 24 of 32 teams to vote for a rules change for it to become law. So they said, look, we're not going to be able today to twist arms on 6 or 8 teams and get them to change. So what they decided to do then is they said, okay, let's just talk about the postseason, where there have been 12 overtime games in the postseason, and the team that possessed the ball first has won 10 of them, including 7 on the first possession. So in 5 of the 12 playoff games, it was a 1-possession game that this team that lost the toss never got a chance to take the ball. So that rule, overtime only, passed 29-3. And I think the competition committee will continue to bring this back in the future. But as for now, I think they felt we at least need to get this passed for the postseason. Paul, your reaction?
For someone like me, Peter, I think it's best case scenario. You and I have talked about this a number of times here in the offseason, especially since that game at Overhead between the Bills and Chiefs. I was definitely in the minority. I was not bothered by the fact, or bothered by the old rule. I guess it's now old. So the fact that it stays the way it was in the regular season, at least for one more year, doesn't bother me a bit. And even though I wasn't one of these people who said, gosh, this has to change, this is something that is really wrong, I can certainly get in touch with the feeling that I had just as a fan watching that game at Arrowhead and thinking, I don't get to watch Josh Allen after the way he played for most of that game. And then at the end of the game, I don't get to see him in overtime. I did feel a little cheated there. So it wasn't my number one topic, but I can certainly see why it's better for overtime, why I don't have to feel that way. And nobody else has to feel that way again, like we did in January thinking about the Bills.
Paul, there's one other wrinkle to this. And as I spoke with competition committee chair Rich McKay, a little over an hour ago, you know, I said to him, I said, look, the unintended consequence, perhaps, of this rule that I am fascinated by is I think it's very likely that the team that wins the toss is now going to defer, because now when you get the ball second, you're going to know exactly what you need to do. You either need to get, you know, a touchdown to win if the first team either didn't, or if the first team got a field goal or didn't score, or, you know, or if they didn't score, you only need a field goal. Or if the first team got a touchdown in the PAT, you may choose, if the first team has a powerful Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen type quarterback, you may choose, if you score a touchdown on your drive, you may choose to go for 2 and end the game right there. So there's a lot of that. And Rich McKay had a great point. He goes, listen, coaches aren't necessarily going to love this because it adds another decision that they can get killed for. But he said, I think the fans are going to love it, because the fans are going to be able to debate the strategy of another coaching decision.
When I first heard you say that, Peter, and actually when I first read about it a little while ago, I was like, man, 9 times out of 10, whoever wins the toss is going to choose to take the ball first. And I think I'd change that to 10 times out of 10. Why wouldn't you want to take the ball first? It really puts you in the position of power. So I'm sorry. Why wouldn't you kick it off? Why wouldn't you kick the ball off is what I meant. Yeah, because then if you do get the ball back, you can play it in a completely different way with your offensive strategy. So I think nearly every single time we will see the team that wins a toss decide to kick it off.
Paul, let's move on to a topic that I'm totally fascinated about, and that is the new way that teams are being built. And I think we've seen it in huge ways in the last 10 days to 2 weeks when Deshaun Watson gets traded, even with all his baggage, for 6 draft choices, including 3 ones. Tyreek Hill gets traded for 5 draft choices. Davante Adams gets traded for a 1 and a 2. And so I really view that life in terms of construction of teams is changing. I had a stat in my column on Monday this week where I said, and I'll just tell you what the stat is: picks by Miami in the top 100 of the 2020 draft, 6. Picks by Miami in the top 100 of the 2021 draft, 5. Picks scheduled for Miami in the top 100 of this year's draft, 0. And Miami basically has said, listen, we've done a lot. We've picked a lot of young players in the draft. We've gotten rich, on draft choices. Maybe they're not all going to work out, but we've spent a lot of draft capital. Now we want proven players. We want to do it the Rams way, which has worked. Give me your view on teams, basically both teams jettisoning these players and also teams acquiring Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill and Deshaun Watson.
I think most of this, so you have to look at it through the lens of the passing game. And if it's done for a quarterback, if it's done for a real difference maker, a wide receiver, people are pretty forgiving now when they just think about the excitement and the way that team can win now compared to the way they could win or not win, lose more often than not before they made that move. I also want to point out, too, that we talk about the Rams model now, and it's the one we really have, but the Rams got it done and won. So the first couple of times, and it'll happen, where a team goes in big to do it now, gave up a lot of picks, and it didn't work. Let's see how people talk about it then. Right now, it's easy to be fired up about it because the one example we have could not have gone any better, whether it was for Von Miller or Matthew Stafford, giving up picks for Ramsey, the cornerback. The Rams have gotten it done. So let's see if somebody else can get it done also. And when they don't, and it'll happen, this conversation could come back the other way quite a bit.
I want to piggyback this topic with another Dolphins topic. So a lot of people call the huge fans of Tua Tagovailoa Tuanon, because anytime you even remotely criticize him or question him, they come out of the woodwork and saying, what's wrong with him? He's the greatest quarterback since Marino. But he may very well end up that way. But so I just have this sort of mental picture of Tua as a quarterback. It may be not totally justified, but I kind of think of Tua as a horizontal thrower of the ball, and instead of a vertical thrower of the ball. Now, obviously, he has thrown some deep and all that, but I did find out from Pro Football Focus that last year he only had 14 completions on balls thrown 20 yards or more past the line of scrimmage. So 5.3% of all of his completions last year were 20 yards or more down the field. And I wrote that, Mahomes had 36 of them, and most quarterbacks, are a little bit better and a little bit more eager to throw the ball downfield. If you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 4.29 and 4.37 on either side of the field, I'll tell you one thing: you better air it out a couple of times every Sunday, 4 or 5 times maybe. But tell me your thought about whether this is actually a good fit for the offense that Mike McDaniel is going to run.
I think it can be, Peter, because if you look at what Miami did last year, they found a way to win a lot of games at the end of the year with a really bad running game and an extremely conservative passing game, a good defense, and a schedule that was in their favor. Okay, so now you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mike Gesicki. You've invested more in the offensive line. You've invested more in the running game in terms of the coach you brought in. and also with a running back he used to work with. Two thoughts. Number one, with Miami last year, and really even his rookie year, Peter, it was almost like they gave the keys to the car to Tua, but said, don't drive at night. Don't drive on the freeway. Both hands on the wheels. Like, you're in charge. Be really careful. Don't screw it up. And now he's got 21 starts. He has a new head coach. He has what I think is the biggest difference maker out wide in Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Let him go now. And it's crazy how quickly the story turned from positive about Miami to, all right, Tua, no excuse now. Let's see what you got now. But I'm excited for him, and I don't think it has to be an over-the-top offense. Defenses took it away from Patrick Mahomes this last year, and really Tyreek Hill was kind of 20 yards back to the line of scrimmage with a lot of his success. There's a lot of catch and run, and Tua can do that. So there are plenty of reasons to be skeptical about him, but I'm on the other side. I'm really excited to see how he can make it work, even though I don't expect him to become this over-the-top quarterback that he really isn't.
The flip side of this trade was, man, why did Kansas City trade Tyreek Hill? And I think I have a pretty good idea of it. And let me just run down a few things that were going through Kansas City's mind. This was a very 2022 NFL trade. And this is why. Normally, trades like this until the last couple of years, as Drew Rosenhaus, the agent for Tyreek Hill, told me, normally you never see trades that happen like this, because a guy like Tyreek Hill, until he was absolutely at the end of the line, would almost never leave his team. But here's how Kansas City felt. If they paid Tyreek Hill top of market, which is what he wanted, and I have to tell you, Paul, I was surprised. They came very close. And I can tell you, their final offer on Tuesday morning to Tyreek Hill really surprised him, and it surprised Rosenhaus. They stretched a lot more than they had thought. But Tyreek, I think deep down all along, always wanted to go to Miami if the money was fairly similar. Remember, no state income tax in Florida. So a lot of his money is going to be essentially, significantly less taxed. But there's one other factor in this. I think Kansas City felt like we have a lot of faith and trust in our personnel staff and our scouts, in Andy Reid to recognize what a good receiver is in this offense, and Patrick Mahomes to make great receivers out of good receivers. Because with him in his offense, speed is fantastic, and they want speed. But he's been able to make do with a lot of different kinds of receivers in that offense. So at the end, make no mistake about it, Kansas City in an ideal world wanted to keep Tyreek Hill, and they tried. But there's a certain excitement and a certain thing that's kind of, they're looking forward to seeing what they can do with 2 picks in the top 60 now. The 29th pick in the draft. They've got picks 29 and 30. That they're going to take a speed receiver in the first round of this draft with one of those 2 picks. And the one other thing about this, one other thing that I think is really important. What are the 2 teams that have lost superstar receivers? 2 of the best 5 receivers in football. Green Bay and Kansas City. Well, Green Bay now coming into this draft has 4 picks in the top 60. Kansas City going into this draft has 4 picks in the top 62. So what this means, Paul, is that both of these teams right away now, 1 month from now, when the draft kicks off, 4 weeks from Thursday, they're going to have the ability to go out and get a really good receiver, maybe 2 really good receivers in this draft.
It's alarming just to think about watching the Chiefs and Packers a couple of months ago, Peter. And if someone would have said to you in your living room, what do you think Aaron Rodgers would look like without Davante Adams? What do you think Patrick Mahomes would look like without Tyreek Hill? And now we're facing a season where that's actually going to happen. As far as the draft is concerned, I think it's a really deep class of wide receivers, not just at the top, but in the late first, second, third rounds. So there are going to be some pretty good options there for both of those teams. The part of this that intrigues me the most, though, is Kansas City without the most explosive receiver in the National Football League. I know teams started playing them differently. His role changed, him being Tyreek Hill. But this is like you take a pitcher who can throw at 100 and say, okay, you can only throw at 96 now. Let's see if you can develop the slider and, paint around the plate like you haven't done. That's what Patrick Mahomes is faced with. I mean, he's without his biggest difference maker. Kelsey's great. I think Juju's a nice fit there. But his challenge just became a whole lot different. I think even more different than Aaron Rodgers, because Davante wasn't as explosive, didn't stress a defense the way that Tyreek Hill does.
Paul, I want to move to a decision that was made that I thought should have gotten a lot more attention. When a quarterback who I think probably has 2 or 3 productive years left, Matt Ryan, leaves a team that he has been the main character on for 14 years and goes to the Indianapolis Colts, who Matt Ryan just dropped out of the sky onto their team for a 3rd round draft choice. I think they got extremely lucky, but I want to address this from the Atlanta standpoint. Didn't it seem like this we weren't even thinking of this 3 weeks ago?
Right.
Didn't you think 3 weeks ago that Matt Ryan, he's going to play 2 or 3 more years. He'll ride off into the sunset, get his name in the Ring of Honor, be a candidate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Who knows if he'll make it, but he's going to play his whole career with the Falcons. It ended so fast. And I spoke with Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons. He told me 2 interesting things. He said they were not positive that they were going to go after Deshaun Watson. They had an hour and 15-minute interview with him. And if Watson if Watson had said, you're my number 1 team, I want to come here, they would have, according to Blank, they would have spent a lot more time than researching the 22 women who have the cases against him. He said, we had definitely not made that decision. That was number 1. And number 2, he said, look, I love Matt Ryan, one of my favorite players we've ever had. And he went on for 2 minutes about how great Matt Ryan is and what a great person. He said, but his salary cap number had become an anchor to their team. And he mentioned several players who they had lost in free agency. And he said, I understand that this is a startling thing, but we are going to enter 2023 as of now with a projected $110 million under the cap. We've never had that. We need that freedom to be able to build a team. So I kind of understand why Atlanta did what they did.
There's a lot of ways it makes sense, Peter, and we've seen this so many times before. I mean, I was just thinking of Peyton Manning. You're talking about this. It should have ended really well for Peyton with the Colts, but these things happen at that position, even with guys who are wonderful on the field and off it. The part that makes me shake my head, Peter, about what you just said, I don't think any organization could have gone into the Deshaun Watson, well, let's see if this works kind of thing, unless you are 1,000% in and we're going to make this happen and we're going to deal with whatever consequences there are. To kind of go halfway and think it was going to be okay and okay, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, this is the result. The most important player in your franchise history leaves with a bad taste in his mouth. And that's the only part of what you just said.
That is true. I can tell you, Matt Ryan is the nicest guy in the world. He's polite. He says all the right things, but he does have a bitter taste in his mouth right now. There's no question about it. Okay, Paul, before we get out of here, I want to ask you, Chris Sims on his Unbuttoned podcast right here at NBCSports.com. You guys have had a discussion about the top quarterbacks in the draft, and he seems to like Malik Willis, but not really be in love with him. And I think what I'm hearing around the league is that there's a lot of teams that, of all the pro days, they really were impressed with all aspects of Malik Willis. Give me your thought on Willis as a quarterback and whether you have reached any decisions on which one of these guys you like the most.
Yeah, I kind of treated this, I think it was early last week, Peter, when Chris and and he also did it with Ahmed Fareed. I think he spent both days last week just talking about the quarterbacks, his 1 through 5 and running through each one. I treated that as a real get to know you. And then I went back and watched Malik Willis myself after Chris talked about him. He had him as his third quarterback. And I said to Chris after he got done evaluating him, I said, every year I sit here and listen to you, and there's always one guy who I can tell there's a real chance you might move him up, that maybe you like him a little bit more than where you have him ranked. I think Malik is that guy for him. I don't know if he bumps him up to 2 ahead of Pickett from Pittsburgh, but right now he has him at 3. When I watched him, Peter, 2 things stood out. Number 1, how well he throws the deep ball. And number 2, what an effective runner he is and how that can translate to the NFL. And I want to draw the line between, this isn't just, hey, he's got a strong arm and he's fast. He's a talented deep ball thrower. It's different. You want the push route down the sideline, he's got great touch. You want it over the middle of the field with the post, he can do that and put it in the right spot. You want that 30-yard skinny post, he can drive that as well. So he has a nuanced, deep passing game, and he's a really effective runner. It's not just that he's fast, good instincts, good acceleration. And as we saw in the pro day, he is built like a linebacker from the waist down. This is a big, thick kid who could handle some of the punishment that would come. So I think of Josh Allen running 8 or 10 times a game. I think Malik could do that as well in the NFL. So the upside with the big, deep arm and also the fact that he can run, I don't think he makes it past 20.
I would agree with you. Paul, a lot more to discuss about the quarterbacks in this draft. I have not gotten into them at all. This is my weekend, where I'm really going to dive into them, watch them a little bit. I'm going to listen to Chris's pod on them and look forward to getting educated. For now, really appreciate you joining me this week. I know you are traveling this week, and so Godspeed on your travels. We right now are going to get into my conversation from the league meetings with Sam Farmer of the Los Angeles Times. My thanks to Sam Farmer and to, let me do that one more time. My thanks to Sam Farmer and to Paul Burmeister. Paul is an invaluable help to me on this podcast. Much, much appreciated. And I don't know what we're going to do on the podcast next week, but whatever it is, the mystique, I'm sure, is going to drive you nuts over the next few days. Thanks a lot for listening to the Peter King Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.